When a beloved story reaches its final chapter, there is always a mixture of excitement and sadness. Some fans wait years to see how the saga ends. Others hesitate, afraid that the conclusion may not live up to everything that came before. Downton Abbey is one of those rare series that built a world so rich, so layered, that its farewell would never be simple. Today we step into Downton Abbey 3, the grand finale, a film that promises closure, nostalgia, and perhaps a few heartbreaks along the way. But the real question is, does it truly deliver a finale worthy of the name? Downton Abbey was never just a series. For 6 seasons, it became an escape into another time. A place where elegance and duty walked hand in hand, where rules governed not only behavior but entire lives, and where the upstairs and downstairs worlds collided with drama and grace. It was a story about tradition, about change, and about the small moments that carried enormous weight. From the great halls to the servants' quarters, from lavish feasts to whispered secrets, it invited us into a world that felt orderly and safe. And yet, it always managed to surprise us with sudden turns, personal losses, and sharp humor that cut through the formality. The series ended, but it did not disappear. Its popularity gave rise to 2 feature films. The first brought beloved characters back together. The second offered grandeur and even allowed fans the chance to celebrate the story with worldwide premieres. I still remember attending the premiere of the second film in London. There was not only the red carpet, but also an entire lesson in etiquette, manners, and the traditions that Downton Abbey so carefully portrayed. That experience felt like stepping inside the show itself. It was unforgettable. Now, years later, we face the third film, and this time it comes with a subtitle that carries weight, the grand finale. At 124 minutes long, rated for audiences aged 6 and up, it promises to bring the journey to an end. A story that began with the sinking of the Titanic, that stretched through wars, romances, scandals, and generational changes, now offers its last bow. Fans across the world entered theaters in September with hope and expectation. Would it be as graceful as Lady Violet herself, or would it stumble under the weight of its own history? The film begins with a loss that reverberates through every frame. Violet Crawley, the indomitable Dowager Countess, no longer lives. Maggie Smith, whose sharp wit and steel-edged charm defined the character, is gone. The absence is not only felt, it is the beating heart of the story. In many ways, Downton Abbey 3 is a farewell not only to the series, but to her presence. The film honors her with a kind of memorial, both within the story and at its end. Violet was more than a character. She was the anchor, the spark, the unexpected rebel in an era of rules. With her biting remarks, her stubborn strength, and her ability to cut through hypocrisy with one glance, she became irreplaceable. Without her, the halls of Downton feel quieter, and the story feels more vulnerable. Her absence sets the stage for a larger theme, the passing of the torch. Robert Grantham, Lord of the House, understands that Downton cannot remain his forever. He looks toward his daughter, Lady Mary, to carry the legacy forward. She has always been at the center of change, torn between duty and independence, tradition and modernity. Now she stands again at a crossroads. The film challenges her with more than just responsibility. Society itself looks at her with suspicion. She faces humiliation and near exile in circles that once respected her. Yet in that fall lies the chance for transformation. Can she turn rejection into strength? Can she step into her role as the new heart of Downton Abbey? The question hovers, unresolved, keeping the audience watching. As upstairs deals with its transitions, so too does the world below. In the servants' quarters, the generational shift is just as profound. Mr. Carson, the steadfast butler who defined service for decades, takes his leave. His departure is not only a goodbye to a man, but to an entire way of life. The apprentices he once trained now step into leadership roles, but not all accept the burden easily. Change is difficult, and loyalty to the old ways remains strong. These quiet tensions echo the greater theme, the inevitable march of time. What was once solid and eternal must eventually pass to new hands. The film does not shy away from giving nearly every beloved character their moment. Daisy inherits the kitchen, guided still by the wise Mrs. Patmore. Thomas Barrow, whose life has taken him through turmoil and secrecy, returns to Downton, now changed by his time in the world of theater. His presence brings new perspectives on art and identity, challenging the house's long-held values. Each character is offered a final glance, a reminder of where they came from and where they might go. It feels less like a film at times and more like a farewell gathering, a family reunion where each person stands up, tells their story, and takes a final bow before stepping out of the light. Yet, for all this nostalgia, one cannot help but feel the strain. With so many characters and so much history, the film struggles to balance them all. The deeper themes, Lady Mary's societal rejection and the looming shadow of the Great Depression, sometimes feel muted, secondary to the effort of giving everyone closure. This choice makes the film feel less like a sweeping cinematic finale and more like a long, extended episode of the series. The pacing lingers, the drama circles back on itself, and the emotional punches are softened by sentimentality. Still, for those who followed these characters across years, these moments hold weight. And then there is history itself pressing in. The story moves into the 1930s, where the world outside is darkened by economic collapse. The Great Depression, rippling from America to the rest of the globe, creeps into the lives of even the aristocracy. The Crawleys cannot hide from it. Financial troubles once again haunt the estate, echoing earlier seasons, but now tied to the shifting tides of modernity. This sets the stage for the arrival of Harold Levinson, Lady Grantham's brother, portrayed by Paul Giamatti. An Oscar-winning actor, Giamatti lends weight to the role, but the film gives him little room to explore. His presence highlights the crisis, yet one senses the character deserved more. Alongside him appears an American businessman whose schemes push the story forward, but again, the focus drifts. These threads offer intrigue, but they dissolve into the larger fog of nostalgia. Downton Abbey has always thrived on contrasts, the splendor of its grand halls against the quiet duty of its servants, the rigid traditions of the aristocracy against the whispers of a changing world. In the grand finale, this contrast is sharper than ever. The house itself becomes a symbol of resistance and fragility. It stands tall, filled with memories, yet feels weighed down by the uncertainty of the future. Lady Mary carries this weight most heavily. For years, she has balanced being a daughter, a mother, and a reluctant leader. Now the film asks her to face something far greater. Can she embody not just the estate, but the values that once held everything together? Society casts her aside, questioning her choices, her independence, even her worth. At times she seems broken, at other times defiant. Watching her struggle is a reminder of how women of her era had to fight for respect in spaces that sought to silence them. The film frames her as both outcast and potential heroine. That tension becomes one of the strongest threads running through the story. While Lady Mary wrestles with reputation and duty, the servants below stairs confront their own endings and beginnings. Mr. Carson, who once represented dignity and order, accepts that his time is over. His farewell is tender but also unsettling. What does a man do when his entire life has been dedicated to service and suddenly the service is no longer needed? The question lingers not just for him, but for everyone in Downton. As younger generations step forward, older ones step aside, often unsure of what lies beyond. Daisy's rise in the kitchen is one such moment. Once timid and unsure, she now carries responsibility with quiet confidence. Guided by Mrs. Patmore, she represents the new blood of Downton. But even here, tradition and modernity clash. Recipes change. Expectations shift. The very idea of what it means to serve evolves. This subtle passing of the torch mirrors the grander handovers happening above. And then we have Thomas Barrow. His return is one of the film's most striking choices. Having explored life outside the estate, he brings back with him an energy that feels less bound by tradition. His experiences in theater and art contrast the rigid structures of Downton. For much of the series, Thomas embodied secrecy, burden, and rebellion. Now he appears more at ease, more willing to embrace who he is. His presence challenges the old house to accept new identities, new ways of living, and a broader sense of freedom. In this way, he is not just a servant returning. He is a symbol of the world outside breaking in. But Downton Abbey 3 is not content to simply give us small personal closures. It insists on grandeur, even if the result sometimes feels stretched. The Depression-era struggles are woven in through Harold Levinson and the introduction of wealthy American figures. The idea is clear. Money, once taken for granted, is now precarious. The Crawleys may have titles, but even titles cannot shield them from global crises. This theme has appeared before in the series, but here it feels more urgent. Yet the film struggles to balance this urgency with its nostalgic farewells. As a result, financial troubles become less of a central conflict and more of a background echo. Still, the arrival of Harold Levinson cannot be ignored. Paul Giamatti, despite his limited screen time, injects gravitas. His portrayal hints at a man burdened by mistakes and eager to remain relevant. Yet the script underutilizes him, leaving the audience to imagine what more he could have brought. Alongside him, Alessandro Nivola as the newcomer Mr. Sambrook brings fresh energy. His performance suggests mystery and potential upheaval. For a brief moment, the film teases intrigue. Could he alter the course of events at Downton? Sadly, the foreshadowing makes his path predictable. What might have been thrilling becomes a story we see unfolding too clearly. This is the challenge of the grand finale. It tries to do everything: to honor the past, to nod to the future, to tie up arcs, and to introduce just enough novelty to hold interest. But in doing so, it sometimes loses its sharpness. The strongest emotions come not from surprises, but from recognition. Audiences watch to see their favorite characters one last time, to recall old conflicts, and to say goodbye. The film understands this and leans heavily into it. And so, instead of high drama, we get reflection. Scenes of characters sitting by fireplaces, asking themselves what comes next. Couples contemplating their future. Servants wondering about life beyond duty. Lords and ladies questioning the value of traditions in a changing world. These moments may not thrill, but they resonate. They remind us that Downton Abbey was always about people navigating the inevitable passage of time. Nostalgia becomes the driving force. The film knows that its audience is not only watching for plot, but for memory. It delivers this with deliberate care. A glimpse of a smile here, a line of dialogue that recalls an old scene there, a farewell that echoes the beginning of the journey. It feels like a mirror being held up to 15 years of storytelling. For longtime fans, these echoes strike deep. They may not bring shock, but they bring warmth. Still, there is an unavoidable question: is warmth enough? Can nostalgia alone carry a finale? For some, the answer will be yes. For others, it will feel like a soft landing instead of a grand finale. This duality is what defines the film. It is both comforting and underwhelming, heartfelt and hesitant. Nostalgia is not just a theme in the grand finale, it is the very fabric of the film. Every character, every hallway, every carefully lit dinner feels like a reminder of what once was. At times, the film almost stops moving forward, preferring instead to look back. For some viewers, this is precisely what they came for. After all, Downton Abbey has always been more than a story. It has been a memory palace, a place to return to where familiar faces still smile and familiar rituals still unfold. The film provides these moments deliberately. Mr. Carson's farewell is not rushed. It is a pause in the story, a chance to reflect on a man who lived and breathed duty until his final bow. We see him by the fire, questioning what life means once service is over. His departure hurts because it represents the end of an era. Yet there is beauty in it. Beauty in watching someone accept that the world no longer needs them in the same way, and in finding dignity in letting go. Daisy's journey mirrors the opposite. She embraces responsibility with a cautious but growing confidence. Taking her place in the kitchen, she no longer stands in the shadow of others. Her steps are firm. Her voice, once uncertain, now carries weight. She symbolizes the natural order of renewal, the old stepping aside so the young can rise. Mrs. Patmore, wise as always, becomes more than a mentor. She is a bridge between past and future. Watching her guide Daisy while still holding the traditions of the house is like seeing history itself being passed down. Their bond becomes one of the warmest threads in the film, a reminder that family is not always blood, but also the people who shape you. And then there is Thomas Barrow, who embodies change in its boldest form. His journey has always been turbulent, marked by secrecy and longing. Now, having lived beyond the walls of Downton, he brings back with him a freedom that once seemed impossible. His presence at a social event tied to theater and performance injects an energy that feels modern and daring. He reminds us that Downton is not just about what has been, but what can be. For those who have followed his arc, his return feels like a reward, a small but meaningful triumph over years of constraint. Yet the film does not stop with individual closures. It layers them one after another until the weight of farewell becomes almost overwhelming. Every character receives a moment, a glance, a small storyline that gestures toward their future. Mr. Bates, Mrs. Hughes, Barrow, Daisy, even minor figures are given the chance to step into the light one last time. It is generous, but it comes at a cost. With so many threads, the central drama weakens. The story stretches thin as it tries to hold everyone. That is why the film's larger conflicts, Lady Mary's societal disgrace and the looming depression, sometimes fade into the background. They should be thunderclaps. Instead, they become echoes. The filmmakers clearly chose sentiment over tension, memory over momentum. For some fans, this is satisfying. For others, it may feel like a finale that refuses to truly test its characters one last time. Still, there are flashes of grandeur. The film begins with a dazzling London sequence, evoking the nightlife of the city and the sense of a world in transition. Later, a rural festival brings the community together, mixing joy with small rivalries and reminders of tradition. These events give texture and color, but they too serve more as backdrops for reflection than as engines of plot. Perhaps this was the intention all along, to make the grand finale less of a climax and more of a long goodbye. A chance for viewers to walk the halls one last time, to see the characters in their familiar roles, to remember how far they have come. The film closes with montages and quiet reflections, pulling us back through 15 years of stories. It does not roar, it sighs. It ends not with a thunderstorm, but with a sunset. For fans who have carried Downton in their hearts, those final moments may bring tears. The nostalgia hits hard, sometimes harder than the story itself. Seeing the echoes of seasons past, recalling Maggie Smith's unmatched presence, remembering where it all began. These are powerful emotions. Yet once the credits roll, the question remains. Without nostalgia, what remains? Is this truly a grand finale, or simply a soft landing dressed in sentiment? The answer may depend on what you wanted from Downton Abbey. If you hoped for high drama, shocking turns, or a bold reimagining, you may leave unsatisfied. If you longed only for one last chance to see these beloved faces, to stand once more in those corridors, then the film gives you exactly that. Performances carry much of the weight in the grand finale. Michelle Dockery as Lady Mary delivers once again the mixture of poise and vulnerability that has always defined her. She is icy and determined in one scene, then exposed and wounded in the next. Her ability to embody both sides of leadership makes her the natural centerpiece. Hugh Bonneville as Lord Grantham remains steady, embodying tradition and fatherly duty, though his role is more symbolic than transformative. Elizabeth McGovern as Lady Grantham offers warmth and resilience, but like her on-screen husband, she mostly provides continuity rather than surprise. The supporting cast feels like a family reunion. Jim Carter as Mr. Carson, Phyllis Logan as Mrs. Hughes, Joanne Froggatt as Anna Bates. They all return to their roles as though no time has passed. Their familiarity is both comfort and constraint. We know them so well that there are few surprises left. Yet seeing them once more feels like opening an old photograph album, filled with faces that shaped a decade of television. Paul Giamatti's Harold Levinson and Alessandro Nivola's Mr. Sambrook represent the film's attempt to inject freshness. Giamatti's presence is dignified but underused, a reminder of how much depth could have been explored but wasn't. Nivola brings charisma, yet the script telegraphs his role too clearly, robbing the audience of suspense. Both performances feel like missed opportunities, gestures toward greater drama that the film hesitates to embrace. At the helm is Simon Curtis, who previously directed Downton Abbey, A New Era. He is no stranger to period drama, having worked on films like Goodbye, Christopher Robin and My Week with Marilyn. Here, however, his approach is careful, even cautious. He prioritizes sentiment over spectacle. Scenes linger longer than they might, and tension often softens before it can truly grip the audience. His direction ensures a respectful farewell, but not a memorable cinematic event. One could argue that Downton Abbey itself demanded this. Perhaps a thunderous finale would have betrayed its spirit. This was never a story of revolutions and explosions. It was always about quiet rooms, measured words, stolen glances, and the weight of tradition. In that sense, the film remains true, but truth does not always mean triumph. By the time the credits roll, we are left with reflection rather than exhilaration. We remember Lady Violet's sharp wit and the void her absence leaves. We see Lady Mary stepping reluctantly into the role of matriarch, a woman both scarred and strengthened by the times. We watch the servants pass their torches, unsure but hopeful, embodying the eternal rhythm of life moving forward. The estate itself becomes a character, a relic of an age that has already slipped away, standing firm for just a little longer. So how should the grand finale be judged? As a historical drama, it earns respect. It presents the 1930s with elegance, it captures the mood of change, and it pays homage to the legacy of one of television's most cherished worlds. Yet as a film, it falters. It does not rise to the grandeur its title promises. It feels more like an extended series episode than a cinematic farewell. The storytelling is gentle, the stakes are soft, and the surprises are few. Still, for the devoted fans, it delivers what matters most: closure. It offers the chance to say goodbye, to walk through the doors of Downton Abbey one last time, to sit with these characters, remember their journeys, and release them into memory. In that sense, the film succeeds. It reminds us that endings do not need to dazzle. Sometimes they only need to comfort. If we were to measure in numbers, it would rest at 6 out of 10 as a period drama, 5 out of 10 as a complete film. Respectable but not extraordinary. For me, that is enough. I do not need more from Downton Abbey. It has told its story. It has passed the torch. Other shows like The Crown or Bridgerton now carry the mantle of grand costume dramas, each with their own flair. Downton Abbey paved the way for them, revived interest in the genre, and left its mark. And so the curtain closes. The house stands quiet. The voices fade. What remains is gratitude for the years of storytelling, for the characters we came to love, and for the chance to have lived in their world. Downton Abbey has found its place in history, and now it rests there, timeless and complete.